Picture a whirling circle of people, dancing, their feet pounding the earth in rhythm, voices raised in a joyous harmony. Song after song, they spun in circles with the widest smiles across their faces. They sang into the night. They did not stop when their feet got tired or when they lost their voice. All night long, they noticed one person who was sad, who was sitting on the sidelines. For hours, they tried to pull her into the circle, insisting, "Your sadness will melt away if only you joined us." But she wouldn't budge. Finally, one person stepped out of the circle. He said to her, "Why won't you come and join me?" She said, "I'm not feeling up for dancing, but I love watching you dance. But maybe would you tell me your name? We could chat for a bit." Rabbi Nachman of Breslov told this famous parable about joy. Both the circle dancer and the sad woman reached the highest form of joy when the circle dancer found the courage to sit with the woman in her sadness. When the dancer's happiness and the woman's sadness could exist together, they could find true joy. This parable teaches us a profound lesson about joy's nature, one that I've come to understand deeply through my own experiences. Each and every morning, I engage in a practice that uplifts my spirits. It has to do with a big passion of mine, my indoor plants. In fact, when my husband and I moved to Narberth just a few months ago, we took a special trip down here to make sure that my plants would arrive safely and they wouldn't go with the movers. So each and every morning, after I wake up and prepare for my day, I brush my teeth, I get dressed, I say hi to my dog, don't worry. I go downstairs to greet my leafy companions. I carefully check each one, and I look for new inklings of growth. I'm happy to report that this morning there are 2 new leaves that I'm watching. Plants are vibrant, they're growing, they're evolving daily, and witnessing each inch of growth is so beautiful for me. It fills me with delight. These plants, they entered my life in a period of deep sorrow. It was a period when my health and my relationships and my emotions were strained. I lived in a Manhattan apartment with no natural light, so deep in the shaft. How in the world could I keep a plant alive? But I decided to try. It didn't magically solve my problems, but tending to my now growing collection became a daily source of joy. This taught me a valuable lesson about dealing with sorrow. We have choices. We can despair, we can become numb, or perhaps surprisingly, we can find joy in unexpected places. My journey with plants isn't just about my personal growth. It's a microcosm for approaching the larger sorrows in our world. And this year, we've trudged through a year of sorrow. A year where it felt like sorrow dragged down each step we took. It seems recently that our years have become heavier with sorrow. Each year, it weighs us down a little bit more. Some of us feel this sorrow in every fiber of our being. We're losing sleep over the warming of our climate, the thought of upcoming elections, and of course, the war in Israel and the return of our hostages. And it's likely true that as I'm speaking, there are some of our brothers and sisters who are running down to their shelters in Israel. Their sorrow, it's wrapped in ours. It still exists today, it exists tomorrow, and exists for many days to come. But I've begun to hone in on this one feeling in particular, holding on to this emotion that alleviates the overwhelming heaviness of our world. I've forged a new pathway through wading through the murkiness. Joy. Joy is unique. It's not the same as happiness, it's different from pleasure. To truly understand the unique nature of joy, we need to explore how it's different. Happiness can come from personal accomplishments. Pleasure can come from momentary sensations. And joy is deeper. It's more profound. It's like a spark that ignites in your chest, like a warmth that spreads through your body, like it's honey, it's sweet, it's golden. And while it's going through your body, there might even be some tears still glistening in your eyes. Joy is what the author Zadie Smith experienced on her way to visit a concentration camp with her husband. As they journeyed toward the haunting remnants of human cruelty, Smith's husband held her aching feet. Her husband's gentle touch became a lifeline, a tender anchor in a sea of sorrow. She says, "We were heading towards that which makes life intolerable, feeling the only thing that makes it worthwhile. That was joy." Smith's joy has little to do with pleasure, though surely having your feet held by your love is indeed pleasure. But Smith and her husband were on their way to face human history of hardships. And on her way, she experienced this profound moment of connection, teaching us that joy can exist with and even emerge from our darkest moments. This year in particular, we've seen our people again go through unthinkable hardship in Israel, but also on the college campus and throughout America. So it's our job to be the keepers of the flame of joy until we can all dance again together in peace. So what are joy's conditions? A great struggle tends to precede joy. Joy comes when your heart joins with another's. Joy enters when somehow, somewhere, even if it was too brief, the struggle disappeared and joy entered. As humans, it's surely our nature that hard life events bring us down, and they also keep us down. We are marred by trauma, by war, and by sadness. And our nature is to soak in that sorrow rather than to seek joy. So I suggest it's time to think deeply about joy, to practice bringing joy into our lives, to create joy purposefully. Now, I can make no promises that what is ahead of us in the year of 5785 is any better than 5784. But I do know that we, the Jewish people, our Temple Beth Hillel Bethel community could, and we should, allow more joy in. In fact, our ancestors have grappled with the coexistence of connection, joy, and struggle throughout our ages. It's not new to our generation. The Talmud tells a story of a time after the Second Temple's destruction when the Jewish people were in mourning, and they mourned by abstaining from meat and wine. So Rabbi Yehoshua, he went up to them and said, if you're not eating meat and you're not drinking wine, why don't you also avoid bread and fruit and water? Just avoid it all. Because they too were linked to temple rituals. His point was clear. Such stringent mourning practices are unsustainable. Instead, he suggested gentler reminders of the temple's existence. Why don't you leave a small portion of meals uneaten, or a section of your homes unplastered? That too is a sign of mourning. In Talmudic times, our ancestors struggled with the same tendencies we do today. When something tragic happens, we tend to throw our whole selves into it. Our emotions, our work, and our time is dedicated to despair. But Rabbi Yehoshua's wisdom still rings true today. We can feel the depths of fear, disappointment, rage, and sadness. We can even resort to asceticism. But no, Rabbi Yehoshua says, we can find ways to honor the range of negative emotions, and still we can find some joy. Rabbi Yehoshua taught this through the words, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim. If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. This wasn't meant literally. It was meant as a call to remember without letting grief overwhelm daily life. And this tradition lives on. Our wedding ceremonies beautifully embody the intertwining of joy and sorrow. At the very peak of celebration, the end of our wedding ceremonies, we recite, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, and we break a glass. This solemn moment is quickly followed by the joyous cries, Mazel Tov. At this precious moment, the couple is reminded that they will live both moments of sweetness and sorrow, and their community just outside of the chuppah they're about to exit will be there through both. The same people who shouted Mazel Tov will support them through life's inevitable hardships. Joy, then, it's not just a fleeting emotion, but a powerful force that helps us navigate and strengthen our bonds with one another. It's not just at our weddings that we celebrate joy, it's throughout our Jewish calendar. Joy is woven into the calendar. Holidays like Purim, Simchat Torah, and Sukkot teach us to explicitly be joyful. In fact, on Sukkot, we sing and we're commanded, V'samachta b'chagetcha v'hayita ach sameach. Rejoice in your holidays and have nothing but joy. But interestingly, this word ach can also mean despite it all. So we're commanded, rejoice in your holidays, and despite it all, have joy. Sukkot is the perfect reminder as we're sitting outside in our sukkahs that joy comes with vulnerability. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should only invite joy into our lives at these moments when our tradition tells us to. We have to invite joy in purposefully and with regularity. It doesn't just arrive, and it must exist in between and among holidays that commemorate tragedy or remind us of our misgivings. Rabbi Shai Held writes that the most joyous days of the Jewish year do not commemorate earth-shattering, world-transforming events, but rather the arduous and protracted journey from exodus to destination. Judaism does not primarily connect joy to the great moments when God interrupts history and turns things upside down, but rather to attempting to live with God in the day-to-day march through the desert, through history, and through life. While our tradition provides us with scheduled and unscheduled times for our joy, contemporary thinkers also offer insights on how to cultivate joy in our daily lives. There's a writer, Rosh, who suggests an approach that echoes Rabbi Nachman's parable. He writes, "I am advocating, and adamantly so, that rather than quarantining ourselves or running from sorrow, rather than warring with sorrow, we lay down our swords and invite sorrow in. I'm suggesting that we make some tea from the lemon balm in our garden. We ask sorrow about themselves and we scooch closer to hear them. My hunch is that joy emerging from our common sorrow, which does not necessarily mean the same sorrow, might bring us together. Joy, which gets us to love, it's a practice of survival." I imagine that if Rosh and Rabbi Nachman met today, Rosh would make the woman outside of the circle a cup of lemon balm tea from his garden. He would sit with her and he would learn more about her and find a way to bring her joy. We don't find joy just by ignoring our sadness. We use what is around us to create it. This joy connects us to our suffering. It transforms our suffering. Joy brings us a moment of reprieve, a chance to laugh, a chance to feel pure pride in ourselves, our kids, our friends, our family. Understanding joy is one thing, but actively cultivating it in our lives is another. So how can we put this into practice? This year, I challenge each of us to actively cultivate joy in our lives and our community. Consider starting a joy journal where you write down one moment of joy each day. Or create a joy corner in your home with objects that bring you delight, as my growing plants bring me. As a community, let's commit to sharing our joys when we gather, celebrating each other's simchas with extra enthusiasm, and finding ways to bring moments of light to our moments of sorrow. As we step into 5785, let's not just carry our sorrows, but also the effervescent potential of joy. May we dance carelessly, our hearts pounding with rhythm of life. And may we also sit in quiet companionship, our souls resonating with shared understanding. Let us make this the year where we don't just endure, but where we actively seek and create joy. Where we think of Rabbi Nachman's circle dancers and dance with joy just like them. But we understand that some of us might dance in that circle. Some of us might sit on the outside. Some of us might not even hear the music. But we can all exist together. Each of us, wherever we are, can find joy. May we have a year where we nurture growth like tender plants and break glasses to remember our brokenness. In doing so, may we find that our capacity for joy grows, our bonds strengthen, and our light shines ever brighter. Shana Tova Umetuka. May it be a good and sweet new year, full of moments of pure and transcendent joy.